Hello, my name is Frank Litz, and I am the boys track and field coach at Round High School. Additionally, I am the boys team coordinator for the Midwest Media Champions, the Indiana Junior Senior All Star team, which is pretty exciting, and that's always a fun event. And I also work with the Coaches Association on the clinic to get the speakers to come into the clinic and make that successful, help educate coaches. I moved to Indiana about 20 years ago. My first 30 years, I lived in Philadelphia. I ran a high school track in Philadelphia, and then I went on and I competed collegiately in Pennsylvania. And then when I got my first teaching job, I was an assistant track and cross country coach. And that was really kind of like a good eye opening experience because the team that I was working with, it was a girls' team. They were very talented. We were state champs. And I will say, probably the most influential coach that I worked with. I became the head coach there. He was my assistant coach, and he was fantastic. He was a former All-American hurdler at LSU and just changed my way of thinking on training kids. And so then I coached a little bit at the college where I went to, East Stroudsburg. It's a Division II school out in the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, and then moved out to Indiana, got a job at Round Collie, and I've been teaching and coaching there ever since. And I guess I could say I'm also the strength and conditioning coach at Round Collie now. And so that's fun. I get to work with the speed development and the athleticism for all of our teams. And that's fun to do.
Nice. You seem to have a vast background here.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool, especially when you get to work with all the athletes as a strength and conditioning person. So
yeah. That's new as of 3 years ago.
Okay.
I've been an English teacher, and I guess maybe you reach a point in your life after 20, 25 years of grading essays and going home from school after, an hour and a half of practice, and you still have another hour and a half of work to do. And so about 5 years ago, I went into the principal and I said, listen, man, if you told me I graded my last essay, I'll shake your hand and say, thank you very much. What I'm really passionate about is working with athletes and developing athleticism. And, he moved me into that role. And I love it. So today I worked with the boys soccer team and the baseball team. Mondays and Wednesdays, I work with the softball team. It just kind of rotates through. And I love having a hand on all the athletes. And, when I see their success, I kind of feel like, hey, I may have done something to help that out.
Yeah, I have a similar background. I was also a teacher at one point in time, some time ago. It was a little short-lived, but I discovered in that time frame that I really, really enjoyed the coaching and the working with athletes. And so I had to take a different route. But yeah, that was a cool experience. So I understand where you're coming from with the grading of the papers and all that type of stuff.
It's like, my prep period is full. Like I'm never just sitting around doing crossword puzzles, but it's like, I'm researching movement patterns, and I'm researching, a new set of plyometrics, seeing if there's any, how does a squat relate to a sprint kind of thing. And, I just really like that. And it's enjoyable. And
it's you have that curiosity. It's a built-in curiosity about improvement of the human body. So, and which is what got me into chiropractic. So, I moved that direction because of that curiosity of how you perform better and optimize performance and all those things.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Coach, you talked about, like, as an athlete, you clearly have a beck and call and a love for the sport. What made you want to be on the other side? Right? Being an athlete is one thing, but then transitioning to, I really want to now coach and pour into other athletes. What made you choose that route?
I think it was partially my high school coach, which, I looked up to. My college coach, I love that guy. It's pretty funny. Like our personalities are very similar. Here we are 30 years later, and I'll still like interact with a kid. I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what coach would do. And just kind of like I really looked up to him. He was a good role model. And so when I started teaching, I don't know, I couldn't imagine just teaching. I needed to do something else. And I've always been passionate about it. And so, and then, I mean, the girls team where I was at, we were small. I mean, we went to state with 4 girls, and they scored 72 points. So it was really fun to be a part, just to see how talented they all were.
That's deep. So, whoa! First and foremost.
Well, I had nothing to do with that. That was all Charles, the sprint hurdle coach.
Whoa!
He was fantastic. He was fantastic.
But to be a part of that, what?
Yeah.
Walk us through like the part you played in that. I mean, stepping into a space with other athletes who were already like at a level where it's just like,
right.
How did you approach that as a coach? Did you do anything for professional development, knowing that you had some amazing athletes who could possibly win state?
Yeah. So, Philadelphia, so Atlantic City is an hour away, and they've always had the U.S. All-Star Clinic in Atlantic City, and that's it's a great clinic. It's awesome. So we would go there, but I was the distance coach, and I mean we had some good milers. We had a miler that went to state. She didn't score, but she went to state the year before we won. But really, I kind of feel like it was a maturation process where coming out of college, it was, well, this is the way you coach distance runners. We run a lot of distance and we run a lot of laps, and that's how you get good at it. And Charles was like, no, the 800 is a sprint. And I was like, no, I run the 800. Like, it's not a sprint. What are you talking? And then like the workouts that are now staples in our program, split 8s and split 5s, those came from him. I learned those from him. But like, even then when I was coaching, it was Truman was the school, I wasn't using those. I was still coaching. You're going to run a 600,000, 1,200 mile, 1,200,000, 600 ladder today.
Yes.
And then after I left, I was like, I think I need to do more what Charles was doing and really get after it and get these kids sprinting. And I mean, now the furthest my 800 runners run now is, other than the 800 meters at a race, is 600 meters of practice.
Wow.
Yeah. So we call them the long sprints, and they train to run 2, 4, 8, 300 hurdles. Got groups together, and there's a lot of lactic buildup that goes on in those workouts, and I think it pays off for them.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, so you clearly picked up some things there. But I like that. I'm a fan of the 800 as a sprint. I've been saying that for years.
It is.
Then when I was coaching at my other school, I had a freshman girl who was an 800 runner, and I brought her. She was like, "Oh, I'm with the sprint group." Yes, you are. You'll be here the whole time. You will be with the sprint group. You'll just run a little bit longer on some days. Right. Most of the days, you're right here. But I tell you what, it paid off for her, because as a freshman, she won state in the 800. I mean, it was like, because it was a different style of training, and she had the tools to make it work. She was already fast. We just got her faster, and then we threw in that little extra on top, and that was like the perfect blend of things for her.
Well, I think another piece of it with us is a lot of the kids who are in my group are football guys and soccer guys. And I mean, I feel like if you're telling a football guy, hey, you're going to go run 1,000-meter repeats today, they're probably going to quit the track.
I was a football guy, and I remember they told us one day we had to run a mile, and I was like, he's like, you can run a mile or you can go home. I was like, I'll see you tomorrow.
Right. So you tell them like, hey, you're gonna do instead of 4,000s, you're gonna run 2 500s, but they're gonna be fast.
Right.
They'll definitely, even though the pain of those 500s is definitely more substantial than a 1,000-meter repeat. But they'll take it.
Right. Exactly. It's just it's mental, For a lot of sprinters, it becomes a mental thing.
Well, I played football in high school, and one of the things that I was a receiver, and one of the things my receiving coach told me, and I always remember it, is he said, look, you're going to get hit whether you catch the ball or you don't catch the ball. So you might as well catch the ball. I tell my kids that all the time. This race is going to hurt whether you run fast or you run slow.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well run fast.
Right.
And they kind of take to it.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So how do you, again, you clearly have experience in this space. How do you navigate the technical aspects of coaching with the physical conditioning? And again, you do it for all the athletes. So kind of walk us through, how do you balance the two?
Well, I do have a lot of assistant coaches. I'll tell anybody who wants to listen, our throws coach, I think she's the best. She's a woman, which is great. And she, I think, is the best throws coach in the state. So at this point of the year, all the speed guys, every event, right, has a speed component.
Mm-hmm.
So every event has a power component. We're all working out together, doing plyos and doing some sprints. Throwers are out there with the 100-meter guys, developing speed. But they're also going to take a day or two and go work specifically on throws. Maybe this is bad, maybe this is wrong, but I've always said in the long jump, 90% of the long jump is your speed on the runway. So if you're not, you got to work that most. So we spend most of our time sprinting, and then we get a day or two to work on some takeoff or some flight or landing. But the majority is sprints. So the way that the structure of the program right now is, we go when we come back from break, we'll go 4 days a week, and we do a max velocity day, an acceleration day. We call it a biomotor day, where we're just working on our flexibility or our plyometrics, and then a lactate day. But that's a day where our 110 hurdlers our hurdlers hurdle. They do hurdle drills almost every day. It's part of their warm up. They're doing drills, but that's a day where those long sprinters can go and work on that. They'll do a lactate workout, and then our long jumpers, our high jumpers, can go with coach and work on their technical aspect of their events.
Like a great balance.
Right. Now, so in terms of, like, I heard what you were just saying, what's your core philosophy in terms of when you start coaching, how you move through the season, what you want your athletes to be able to do, how you want them to transition throughout the season? What's that core philosophy that you have?
Well, I feel like that's changed a little, adapted a little bit to coming from Pennsylvania in high school, in college, and then when I was starting out coaching, like it was 3 seasons. You had, you peaked at the end of cross, and then you peaked at the end of indoors. And, I always say you want to end the indoor season where you ended the previous outdoor season. So if you were a 205, 800 runner last year, by the end of indoors, you should be running around 205. And then in the springtime, you're going to try to get a little faster. But with Indiana, we don't really have indoors. It's hard to find indoor stuff. Is one of the things I was shocked about when I got here. So now it's really a year by year it changes. This year, for example, most of our speed kids don't play football or are soccer players. So they were sitting around with nothing to do in October and November. So I was like, look, we can get cooking now. So for those guys, we're moving through, and we're running kind of a traditional indoor season where we want them really, really moving by the time we get to the indoor state meet. That's a goal. Sometimes we got guys, if we have a football heavy team and they're going to deep in the state playoffs, right. Like we're not even going to start anything until January because, they're finishing up in the middle of November, and then we're wrapping up school 3 weeks later. Right. Like, what's the point of really getting started?
Right.
The other thing is it's fluid within the kids, because we've got kids who absolutely have a goal of making it to the state meet and being all state, and we've got kids who don't even know how far the track is all the way around.
Yeah, you have those PE credit kids.
Right.
So our thing all the time is, and the other thing is we don't really get track guys into our program as freshmen. We find kids. It's like, hey, you're pretty good. Why don't you come out and join the track team? Why don't you join the track team? So we get kids who have never been involved in competing in track and field before. So in year one, those guys, we had a meeting the other day and I talked about you have to embrace your role. Like your job in year one is just to get the lay of the land, to figure out what event you're good at. The coaches will figure out what event you're good at. And then probably by the end of that year, it's like, you started off as a 100 guy because that's what you wanted to do. But you'd probably really be good with the hurdles. We should transition you to hurdles. And they're like, oh, I've never done that before. It's like, well, it's going to it's where you're going to be varsity. It's where you're going to help the team. It's where you're going to reach your potential. So then in their second year, they're going all out in I'm a hurdler now. But I mean, I don't know too many people who come out in year one of hurdling and are that good. So it takes that year. And then when they're in year three, it's like that's when they're varsity. So occasionally we'll get a kid coming in right off the bat who's knowing what they're doing. But for the most part, that's kind of like the trajectory that we follow.
I like that because you're able to balance the newcomers with the vets and kind of who you already know what their expectations are for where their focus is. I want to go to state, so I know this is what the plan is going to look like with coach.
Right. We talk all the time about we want to rebuild. We don't want to reload. We want to rebuild. And right now, so like we had a really good thrower last year. So he's a 63-foot thrower, 181 in the disc. That's pretty intimidating to a 10th grader who never picked up a shot put in their life. And, we talk all the time like, yeah, but 3 years ago, that kid never picked up a shot put in his life. Like you just hang in there, just listen to coaching, do what you're told, and it's going to progress because 3 years ago, we had another kid who was a varsity guy, who was a 155 discus guy. So it's kind of like know where you are on the team, have a goal, and then look at those older guys and be like, I'm gonna be that eventually.
Right. I love that.
Yeah, I like how you're putting that together. So that's a nice way to blend your newcomers with your, with what you have in terms of your vets. When you have, you talked about this long season, right? So I'm always curious, when you have these long seasons, what measures do you put in place to kind of make sure they stay healthy throughout the season?
Well, we have a lot of rest. I am not a coach that gets bent out of shape about missing a day. So we don't have an indoor training facility. So when we go out there, we're going to start up on January 13th. If on January 15th it's 5 degrees outside and windy, I'm not going to be like scrambling around trying to find a place to practice. Go home, rest. Like you going home is better for you than finding, 25 feet of the gym to run back and forth or, running up and down the steps in the building, which we're not allowed to do anyway. But so we do a lot of rest. So Mike Holman, the old LC coach, Marion coach, he came and talked to our guys, I don't know, 10 years or so ago. And one of the big things I took from him was he talked about the champion's lifestyle. And that is, the hour that you're at practice, that's great. But the other 23 hours, you need to be hydrating. You need to get your nutrition. You need to get your sleep. You need to get your rest. We emphasize all that. And I mean, yeah, the 14-year-old freshman is probably still eating Doritos at lunch. But eventually when, the kid who's got the goals of being a regional place scorer or getting a state meet, they're a little bit more serious about like, all right, I need to be drinking this whole water bottle twice a day, and I need to, get my sleep, and I need to get the rest. So those kind of things are in place. And then the other thing is polarity. We never, I think all coaches are the same, right? Like we're never going back-to-back hard days. We've got rest days worked in. We do a lot of fun things. We play games at practice. Yeah, we take a lot of days off. We take a lot of this. And actually practices, this also might be counter to a lot of people, but we do not practice more than 45 to 60 minutes. I mean, our distance guys do. They'll go out and I don't know what they're doing. They're running around all over the place. But our speed and power guys, we get in. I mean, they today we did some plyos, we did some depth jumps, and then they went out and they ran 5 by 60 meters all out, and then that was their day. I mean, so they were finished their workout before I was out of the weight room with the soccer boys.
Yeah. Well, it's not always about, the time that you put in, it's what you do in the time
Right.
that you have. Because we have several practices like that, throughout the season where it's just boom, boom, boom. And we've taxed you enough in certain systems that you're good to go. So there's no need to do all the extra. But you guys might want to commandeer a hallway, when it gets 5 degrees outside. That'll work.
Right. You definitely mentally preparing the athletes.
Right.
So it's academically, we're told it's a very rigorous school, and after school they're supposed to be quiet in the hallway so that kids to be tutoring, and they don't want a bunch of kids running around, and there's always a hassle. So I just
that's understandable. So we know with the teaching background and everything, like you help the athletes to balance the two, but academics and the sport. How do you cultivate a team environment, like the team culture for a sport that's definitely more individualized? So, how do you ensure that?
So my first answer, I think, is it's going to be hokey, but at Ron College, they talk a lot about family.
Mm-hmm.
We're a family. So we go to mass once a month, and it's in the gym, and they call it the family room. And I think that just tentacles reach into all aspects of the kids' lives. We have a locker room. It's the football locker room in the fall. It's the track locker room in the spring. So we have our locker room, and we have a team meeting in there before every practice. So that gets everybody together. So the distance guys who go off and run, and the throwers who are going on, that we're all together at that moment. And that's a real kind of a bonding time. We do a team warm up together. And I've had kids be like, why do we have to do this warm up? It doesn't help me. And it's like, yeah, we're going to do this team warm up because it's team time. And then we can go off and do event specific warm ups before your workout in your event group. But we want this team time together. And I mean, over the years, we've done all kinds of different things. We had, and again, I think you have to, at least I read the team. And, if it's all working great, it's all working great. If it looks like something's needed. So there was a time where we were in the weight room, and I just noticed that like all the freshmen were together, all the new kids were kind of spread out, all the upperclassmen were together, and there was no interacting with anybody. And at the time, I had the greatest leader that I've ever coached. And I just went over and I said, what do you see going on here? And, she looked around, and I was like, none of these people are interacting with each other. And I was like, so tomorrow you need to do something. And so she was just awesome. So she went and she invited everybody over to her house, and she had all kinds of like little games that they were playing, and they were mixed up, and that really worked. There was another time something similar happened, and I was like, all right, so tomorrow what I did is I got a bus, and instead of practicing when they showed up, I just put everybody on the bus, and we went to a bowling alley.
Oh, nice.
And I had them on assigned teams, and the teams were all mixed, and I was like, go bowl. And I mean, just, kids being kids, having fun, they get that camaraderie and that, so things like that. We had a buddy program one time where, a thrower and a sprinter and a distance guy were like joined, and I told him, like, look, you have to, if you see that kid in the hallway, you better give him a high five. And when that kid's competing, you better go over and find a way to get to him to cheer him on. But, if it's needed, we'll do it. If it's not needed, if things are just going good, they're going good.
I love it.
There was a young lady who was from Roncalli. She was a 400 runner.
Yeah. Emily.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Sonderman.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you said the leader, I don't know, she popped in my head immediately because
I
remember.
Funny relationship is the girl I'm talking about, also named Emily, married married to Emily Sonderman's brother.
Wow. Wow.
So actually, they both have the same name now. They're both named Emily Sonderman.
I love it. I love it. That's
Wow.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So Coach, where or no, go you go ahead, Coach.
No, go.
No, I was gonna say so with all the things you shared with us, your philosophy, how you prepare your athletes for a season, how do you prepare your athletes for big competition? Like this go time, high pressure situations. How do you prepare them?
Kind of like I said in the beginning, I'm not much of a talker. I'm not a big group talker, but I
Mhm.
am a big one-on-one talker. That's kind of the wheelhouse that I hang out in. Like if there's a kid who, yeah, the younger kids, you're developing, you're learning things. But when you've reached that certain point, we have a lot of conversation. So we have conversation about what events, because part of our philosophy is whatever event you want to specialize in, you have to run the event above it and below it just as well. And then the other thing is we talk in the beginning of the year, like we don't know what the regional is going to look like. So maybe your best shot is going to be in the long jump and not the 100. Maybe your best shot is going to be in the 200. So you got to be prepared all year long so that when we get to sectional and regional, we can make that decision to put you in your best position. So the kid has a voice in that. So we have a conversation about where do you want to go? What event do you want? So our guy right now, he was a state qualifier in the 16 last year. I think we can run a 4x8 that could be all state with him, but that's going to sacrifice the 1600. We're going to talk about that. Is he going to? There's a lot of options in there. So the kid gets a voice. The kid gets a voice in their training, but and also explaining like this is why you're doing this. We always work backwards. So when we have our big invites, like I hate to say it, I don't care about dual meets. Most of my varsity kids don't run dual meets. The dual meets for me are so our schedule is we have one dual meet and one invite a week. The dual meet, all the JV dudes are running, and if a varsity guy needs something, he's going to run. But when we look at those invites, it's like, all right, look, this one, and this one are the ones that matter. Like, what do you want to do at those meets? And then it's like, all right, well, if you're going to run X event at this invite, then the previous invite, let's go. We again just the conversation so that they're primed up and ready to go in that main event. I hope that was okay. I don't know.
No, yeah, absolutely. For sure.
We got it all covered.
I will say, I mean, over the years, we get the sectional, we get the conference. It's 98% PRs. The kids are definitely, they always run their best, compete their best at those meets. I just knocked on wood. But
Okay.
Now, what conference are you all in? I'm curious.
so we're in Circle City Conference. So us, Chittard, Brebeuf, Garin, Heritage. So it's small. It's small but mighty. And there's some good teams in there. There's a lot of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we started off. I think we won the first four, and then COVID, and then Chittard's won the last three. So there's a big one this year because I don't want Chittard to tie us.
You got to keep that streak going.
Yeah,
they're very good Chittard. They got a lot of speed over there. So
yeah. Well, Heritage has a little bit. Well, on the girl side.
Yeah. Well, I always feel like that's funny. So our thrower, dude threw 63 foot. Like it's like the number 19th row in the history of the state of Indiana, and he was conference runner up because Himes was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, how funny! Like now, whoever wins this year is going to throw like 44 foot. It'd be the champion. Oh, this guy threw 20 foot longer and he was a runner up. Sorry.
Right. Wow, that's something. So you sound like you have quite a bit of talent on your team. How do you handle like the recruiting process when it comes to the schools coming around? What kind of influence do you have in there? What kind of schooling do you give the kids?
That is something that I would always like to learn more about because I just don't know. I mean, I feel that like recruiting services in track and field aren't, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like any college coach can go on TFers and see what's up. I do believe that the kids reaching out to the coaches is the best way. But again, I would love to learn more about it. So, usually I just advise the kids like, look, wherever you want to go, fill out the online questionnaire on the website, email the recruiting director, email the event coach, let them know, give them a link to your TFers, tell them your GPA and your academics. 'Cause that's always the strong suit for our kids. But, you know, it, I don't know. I feel like with track, it's just such at least for me, I think it's difficult because, I've talked about it a couple of times, like going back to that 63-foot guy. Freshman year, he never touched. He was never on a team.
Mm-hmm.
Sophomore year was his first year throwing. He threw 44 foot. Junior year, he threw 54 foot. He's going to do he's going to do really well as a senior. Everybody he contacted, birds chirping, no reply, no one's talking to him. The week he threw 63 foot, his phone started ringing off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I get it. Like if I'm a college coach, like everybody in the world is telling me what their potential is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, why are you going to believe them?
Right.
But I mean, I would love to learn more about how to help these kids because, I only have a relationship with 3 or 4 coaches in the college world that will listen to me. So,
well, that's part of what we're doing here. So we're like one of the things, with the podcast, right? We want to highlight those kids and then allow them to be like, hey, you can, they can learn. A college coach can learn more about a kid by the conversation and just listening to them. You can learn about them there, and then the other thing is putting together, the meet that we're putting together, where we pull the top, top kids in the state and put together this indoor meeting. We'll invite all those college coaches to just come see. You can come see for yourself, and then we can, just one of those things we were looking to do to kind of give back and to grow, because we have a lot of talent around Indiana.
Yeah,
and we're just trying to put that highlight out there.
And I feel like with track just being a spring sport, I think it's also you're at a detriment in that, a lot of these guys, you're going to get your best performances in May of your senior year. Mm-hmm. Like, how is that going to help you? Like, you've already committed.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing with the exposure and the meet, and I'm hoping we can get some kids out there it's the week before the indoor state meet. So
yeah. So it'll be a good and it'll be a different setup altogether. So it'll be like the regular meet situation. So you'll have more people be able to be involved.
Yeah.
Highlight their individual talents. Plus,
don't need a relay.
Yeah.
So,
Coach, if we were college coaches, speaking of recruiting, and getting your athletes' names out there for coaches to look at, who should we be on the lookout for this season?
Well, so senior wise, so Sam Vaught, again, he's 416 in the mile, 157. But that's another thing about Indiana. He ran a 157 at our conference, and then when we got to the sectional round, he went 1600 4x4, and it's like that's like the 3 weeks of prime weather, and he doesn't get to run the 800 again.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I wish he could have got at least one more in there at some point. But so he's 416 as a junior. That's pretty nice. And then we've got a really nice incoming junior class that I think is full potential. Again, a shot putter who, as a freshman, was not on the team, didn't even know what track was, through 45, 10, and 11, 45, 10 and a half. So I'm looking at, all right, Seth threw 44 as a sophomore. You threw 45, 10. Like, let's go get that 50 plus as a junior. So Dom Nelson is his name. He's a football guy. And then we got our hurdler. So and this, I mean, so I think this is kind of funny. So this is my kid. He runs the 4x8, the 300 hurdles, and the 4x4. And people sometimes will ask, like, what did your son do to you that you make him run the 3 hardest events in track and field? But it's not my fault that they're spaced out perfectly.
Yeah,
One's at the beginning, one's in the middle, and one's at the end.
Right.
But yeah. So as a junior, my hope this year is for him to get our school record in the 300 hurdles and go 39 low, 38 high, and then he's got a whole senior year ahead of him. And I think we got another Owen Lewis. Again, it's all potential. Like he's another 49 potential guy. He ran 50 point as a sophomore. Yes. So, I mean, you run 54 as a freshman, 50 point as a sophomore. You got to think the kid's going to be 49, 48 as a senior.
Yeah.
And we got 3 of those.
Love it.
Wow.
I love it. That's exciting.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. And, one of the guys told me today, he's like, so he's a junior, and he said, I'm locked in for track this year. This is my first time. I didn't really care about it the first 2 years, but this year I'm locked in. And I was like, all right, because good. You're going to be here. You're good.
Yeah.
We're counting on
you. Love it. I love it.
That works. Well, Coach, we appreciate you joining us and sharing a little bit about your team and your expertise and what you have going on.
Well, I appreciate, again, that you are trying to get some exposure for track and field. I like what you're doing because, like you said, we don't get a whole lot in track and field. And, partially it's because our sectional starts when school is already out. So no one's having a pep session for us, and no one knows that we qualified for the state meet. Like that's one of the things I think is awesome. We're at 22 consecutive state meets that Roncalli boys have had representation. Like I think that's a pretty remarkable feat.
Yeah, that is.
I mean, the principal of the school knows it, but no one else really knows it.
Yeah. Right.
But if we were a winter sport,
yeah.
There'd be something.
Let's just say, if you were basketball, let's just say it's Indiana. If you're basketball, you rule the world around here. You know that.
So I like that you guys are going to work on this.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And I mean, this isn't really a part of it, I don't think. But like I said, with the All-Stars, I think your platform here. I think the All-Star would be a great place to. I mean, because you're going to get the best athletes in the state.
Yeah.
And they're all going to be there. And I think that'd be awesome if you guys can somehow figure it's at Marion. We spend the night there, and that's a great meet. It's a great experience for all the kids who are involved. So I think that'd be awesome if we could figure out a way to get you guys involved with that.
Yeah, we'd love to.
That would be great.
The coaches clinic as well. We'd love to do both of those.
Yeah, the coaches clinic. We're at the point right now where we're starting to get a little nervous. That's like, all right, we got some good headliners coming in. But we could also use a couple more. And so, I think it'd be awesome. We can talk about getting you in there to, do a session or two about some stuff at the clinic. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd work too. All right. Well, cool.
Well, thank you so much, Coach. You did great. You did great.
I just made like a grunting noise.
No, you're good. You're really good.